Papa. I'm going to let you go on mute now, okay? Please?
Sure.
All right, the countdown timer says that I'm going to start in 4 minutes and 42 seconds. But it's wrong. And here we go with workbook lesson 72. Good morning. Thank you guys for joining me in spite of the daylight savings time earliness. I really appreciate it. And I think this would be the day out of the year that my body will rebel against doing this the most. So everything else from here on out is going to be easy sailing for the rest of the 365 days that we're going to be here reading this. And I am not going to hold a grievance about what's going on today. We're going to stay in balance. Holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. Our reading today from A Course in Miracles Workbook for Dummies, Lesson 72. Holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. While we have recognized that the ego's plan for salvation is the opposite of God's, we have not yet emphasized that the ego's plan for salvation is an active attack on God's plan and a deliberate attempt to destroy God's plan. In the ego's attack, God is assigned the attributes which are actually associated with the ego, while the ego appears to take on the attributes of a God of love. The ego's fundamental wish is to replace God. In fact, the ego is the physical embodiment of that wish to replace God. For it is that egoic wish to replace God that seems to surround the mind with a body. Keeping the mind separate and alone, and unable to reach other minds except through the body that was made to imprison the mind. The limit on communication cannot be the best means to expand communication. The limit on communication cannot be the best means to expand communication. Wow, that seems really obvious and frustratingly obvious. However, yet the ego would have you believe that limiting communication by imprisoning the mind within the body is the best means to expand communication. Although the attempt to keep the limitations that a body would impose on the mind is obvious here, it is perhaps not so apparent why holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. But let us consider the kinds of things that you are apt to hold grievances for. Are they not always associated with something that a body does? A person says something you do not like. A person does something that displeases you. A person betrays his hostile thoughts in his body's behavior. You are not dealing here with what the person is, which is God's Son. On the contrary, you are exclusively concerned with what the person does in a body. You are doing more than failing to help in freeing the person from the body's limitations. You are actively trying to hold the person to the body's limitation by confusing the body with the person and judging the person and the body as one. Herein is God attacked. For if God's Son is only a body, so must God be a body as well, a creator wholly unlike his creation is inconceivable. If God was a body, or even if God was in a body, what must God's plan for salvation be? What would that end game look like? What could God's plan for salvation be but death? In trying to present himself as the author of life and not of death, the God of ego imagines this God that the ego imagines is a liar and a deceiver, full of false promises and offering illusions in place of truth. This is the God that most people think of in the Christian church. It's the God of a heaven and a hell. Sentence 4. The body's apparent reality makes this view of the God the ego imagines quite convincing. In fact, if the body were real, it would be difficult indeed to escape this conclusion that God must be a body. And every grievance that you hold insists that the body is real. Every grievance overlooks entirely what your brother is. Every grievance reinforces your belief that God's Son is a body and condemns him for being that body. And every grievance asserts that the Son of God's salvation must be death, projecting this attack onto God and holding God responsible for the death of the body that the ego misperceives to be God's Son. To this carefully prepared arena of egoic distortion that imagines both God and his Son to be bodies is where angry animals seek for prey and mercy cannot enter. This is the dog-eat-dog world of the ego. Into this arena, the ego comes to save you. The ego says, God made you a body. Very well. The ego says, let us accept that you're a body and be glad about it. The ego says, as a body, do not let yourself be deprived of what the body offers. And the ego says, the little you can get from being a body, since God gave you nothing. Missed that first word. The ego says, take the little you can get from being a body, since God gave you nothing. The ego claims that the body is your only savior and that the body is the death of God and your salvation. This belief that the body is your only savior is the universal belief of the world you see. Some hate the body and try to hurt and humiliate the body. Others love the body and try to glorify and exalt the body. But while the body stands at the center of your concept of yourself, you are attacking God's plan for salvation. You are holding your grievances against God and God's creation that you may not hear the voice of truth and welcome the voice of truth as your friend. Your ego's chosen savior. The body takes the voice for truth's place instead. The ego says that the body is your friend, and the voice of truth, which is the Holy Spirit, is your enemy. We will try today to stop these senseless attacks by your ego on God's plan for your salvation. We will try to become God's plan for your salvation instead. Your ego's upside-down perception has been ruinous to your peace of mind. By following your ego's plan, you have seen yourself in a body and the truth outside of you, locked away from your awareness by the body's limitations. Now we're going to try and see this differently. The light of truth is in us, where the voice of the Holy Spirit was placed by God. It is the body that is outside of us, and the body is not our concern. To be without a body is to be in our natural state. To recognize the light of truth in us is to recognize ourselves as we are, which is without a body. To see our big S self as separate from the body is to end the attack on God's plan for salvation, and to accept God's plan for salvation instead. And wherever God's plan is accepted, God's plan for salvation is accomplished already. Our goal in the longer practice periods today is to become aware that God's plan for salvation has already been accomplished in us. To achieve this goal of the awareness that God's plan for salvation has already been accomplished in us, we must replace attack with acceptance. And this proves Adriana correct. As long as we attack God's plan, we cannot understand what God's plan for us is. We are therefore attacking what we do not recognize. I did that this morning. Now we're going to try and lay egoic judgment aside and ask what God's plan is for us. What is salvation, Father? I do not know. Tell me that I may understand. Keep that one as the mantra today. I bet I'll come back to it. What is salvation, Father? I do not know. There we go. Sorry about that. Somebody had invited me and I was trying to dismiss it and I went to it by accident. What is salvation, Father? I do not know. Tell me that I may understand. Then we will wait in quiet for God's answer. We have attacked God's plan for salvation without waiting to hear what God's plan for salvation is. We have shouted our ego's grievances so loudly that we have not listened to God's voice for truth. We've used our ego's grievances to close our eyes and stop up our ears. Who among us is not guilty of this, of pitching a fit, a tantrum, so that we don't have to hear the truth? Now we would see and hear and learn what is salvation, Father. Ask, and you will be answered. Seek, and you will find. We are no longer asking the ego what salvation is and where to find salvation. We are asking the voice for truth what salvation is and where to find it. Be certain that the answer will be true because of whom you are asking, which is the Holy Spirit. Whenever you feel your confidence wane, and your hope of success flicker and go out, repeat your question and your request, remembering that you are asking of the infinite creator of infinity, who created you like himself. What is salvation, Father? I do not know. Tell me that I may understand. God will answer. Be determined to hear. 1 or 2 shorter practice periods an hour will be enough for today. Since the practice periods will be somewhat longer than usual, these exercises should begin with this. Holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. Let me accept God's plan for salvation instead. What is salvation, Father? Then wait a minute or so in silence, preferably with your eyes closed, and listen for God's answer. The notes for Lesson 72, holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. In Lesson 71, we stated that only God's plan for salvation will work, and that God's plan was exclusive. We should follow no other plan, since any other plan would only confuse us and would represent a false belief about what we are. God's plan is simple. It calls for you to accept the truth of your divine birthright for yourself. This is the simple truth that God created you like itself. Since God is only love, you must also be only love. But that is not how your ego defines who you are. To the ego and your world, to the ego, you and your world are ruled by a God of death. How can this strange transformation have taken place? The ego believes that separation is real. According to your ego, you are not holy or whole. Instead, you are a limited physical body. Your ego's plan for your happiness is designed to protect the imperfect physical body that it perceives to be you. By following the ego's plan, you hope to become less incomplete and obtain some temporary happiness. That poor, pitiful little ego. The ego's plan for salvation centers around your ability to hold grievances against God and others. Grievances always require the use of bodies, since only bodies can attack or be harmed. Holding grievances becomes the essential tool in the ego's plan for your salvation. Since grievances are used to manipulate other bodies into helping your ego get its needs met. Your ego claims that if something outside your own mind was different, you would be happy. The ego claims that if something, anything, it's always pointing outside of your own mind, was different, you'd be happy. When someone fails to perform as your ego's plan requires, you are justified in holding a grievance against the other party until they conform to your ego's wishes. The ego's plan for getting its own way is centered around holding these grievances until the outside offending party corrects their behavior and complies with your plan. If they do not do so, additional punitive actions are justified until you get your way. This is how your ego's plan for your happiness works. It's based on manipulation, reward, and punishment. A grievance is based on an idea that something outside of your own mind must do something to make you happy or save you. Why does your ego believe that there is something outside your mind? Well, obviously, because the ego believes that you're a separate, autonomous being. The ego's proof for the reality of the separation is the appearance of the physical world. But more importantly, your physical body. To the ego, the body is you, and you are the body. We identify ourselves as being our body, and therefore the ego offers this false identification with our body as proof that the separation is real. Your true nature is to be without a body. You are a spiritual being having a fleeting human experience. Your body is merely a neutral game token that allows you to play on the game board of time and space. But when you see yourself as the body, you see yourself as separate and apart from God, your source. Since a creation cannot conceive of itself as different from its creator, this egoic belief that you are your body implies that your creator must also be a body. Only bodies can attack. Only bodies appear to be harmed. Bodies have needs, and bodies die. Sorry, I lost my spot. Only bodies can attack, and only bodies appear to be harmed. Bodies have needs, and bodies die. When we accept the belief that we are the body, we must accept the limitations that come with that body. Our egoic world of perception becomes a place of struggle in which we compete for the limited resources that we all need for our survival. When you perceive yourself to be a limited ego body, it's logical to conclude that God has failed to adequately provide for your needs. God has failed to give you the power to save yourself, and therefore you are a victim of outside forces that are beyond your control. If you are your body, then your Creator did not do a very good job. Your body's incapable of sustaining life. You need help from other bodies if you're to survive. Yet these bodies often attack rather than submit to your wishes. What better proof does your ego need to convince your decision maker that God, your creator, must either be limited like yourself or certainly not a God of love? The ego takes the image of the body and projects those same qualities upon God. To the ego, God gave you an imperfect body that must suffer and die. Any plan that God has for you must end in your death, because death is God's creation. If the body is the best that God can do, God's plan for salvation is your ultimate death, and that cannot be something that you would want. The ego advises that if you're a body, you should follow the ego's plan, for only the ego's plan is designed to protect the survival of the body against the ego's, little g, god of death. Eventually, the ego's god of death will kill you, but until that time, it's your ego's plan that will best protect your body that your ego perceives to be you. The ego's plan is to replace the true God of love with itself. Within your split mind, a God of love has now been replaced by the petty, fear-based God of death that mimics your ego's image of who you are. Your ego made this false God in its own fear-based image. Your ego has successfully replaced the God of love with itself. This new false idol was created through your misguided belief that you could hold down a grievance against somebody, and that the grievance has no power to change your own perception of yourself. When you believe that the Son of God is a body, your split mind transforms your creator into a God of death. When you believe yourself to be the body, you really do have something to fear from the idols of this world. Let's take a moment or two to connect with the surface beneath us. Have a nice deep breath. I'll give us a couple of times to breathe. We'll go through some of these thoughts and take care of our first extended session of the day, focused on our lesson of the day. Holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. So let's bring our attention to where we're connected to the earth. Feel your energy stretching out beneath you, connecting yourself to the center of our earth. All of us connected together. Breathing deeply from our core all the way in to fill our lungs. Let your belly expand and make room for those lungs to fill up with nice, cool air. And come into the rhythm where you're holding that breath. And we're going to start an 8-second count. So breathe out all your air and get into the rhythm. 4, 3, 2, 1. Breathe deeply in. Fill your lungs up with air. Keep breathing in. 4, 3, 2, and hold it. 6, 5, 4. Keep that breath there. One, and exhale with control. Nice, deep breath. Breathing out for a couple more seconds. Good job. Deep breaths in. 6, 5, 4. Deep breath. Fill your lungs. And hold it. 5, 4, 3, 2. Breathe out with control. And as we breathe out, get ready to take a nice deep breath, the deepest breath of your day. And get ready to take these messages in and hold on to them tightly. Deep breath filling your lungs. And hold it. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale with control. And we'll focus on the idea that when we hold grievances, that is an attack on God's plan for salvation. Today, our lesson teaches us to look out for the ego because its fundamental wish is to replace God. It tells us the ego is literally the physical embodiment of this wish. Even when the ego is just thoughts within our mind, this wish seems to surround the mind with a body, to separate it, to keep it alone. Father, I do not know. Tell me that I may understand.
We're going to switch here to the very end and just listen to the balance. This was a album that came out in the '60s by the Moody Blues, and it's really the story of a pilgrim, typical pilgrim. The love that you've been giving has all been meant for you. Oh, Lee, we're going to now go to the last song, the balance, so that at the end of all of his travels, he finally finds the balance. asking God to tell us what salvation is, this is a good start.
Yeah.
When he was of anger, knew hurt, he was finally answered, and he understood that everything came from within him, and therefore he could do something about it. Okay, thanks, Lee.
Sure, Papa. If any of you are struggling, you're not alone. This is a tough lesson for me. I'm still struggling to figure out where I'm going to live and what my job's going to be at the end of this month, and what to do with that. So we are welcome here if you're struggling, or if this feels like a piece of cake and you don't have any grievances left. So that would be awesome for you. I'll read the question here, and then I'll open the floor, and I'd love to hear what you guys think. If you were perfect, whole, and complete, what would you need from another to make you happy? Is the question of our day. So, for everybody down in the bottom, Tamara, Dagmar, Dragina, Chelsea, Jordan, Sanaz, Michael, I'm going to invite you. Oh, and Al-Nissa, welcome. I'm glad you're here. The Woman 5, from wherever you are. It looks like you've got a beautiful sky wherever it happens to be. You're all welcome to raise your hands if you want to come up for this thing. I'm just going to turn it off real quick and turn it back on. That way it works. And if you feel like asking the question in the little chat area, you can swipe to the left and chat in there. And as I've said many times before, I send this out to our Facebook group. So we've got a place for us to communicate during the day. And I'm also sending it out to YouTube and to Twitch. And there's places where we can talk there and on Discord. So all the places that we've got, they're in the link here in the Facebook group. And they're also on my main link, the Course in Miracles Live. Also, links back to where to get Tom's book, A Course in Miracle Workbook for Dummies, the one that I read through most of the time. And A Course in Miracles Circle of Atonement edition, with lots of footnotes. Sometimes I read from that one because there's interesting stuff in there. For instance, in this one, there was a footnote as I was reading on the second page. It was the phrase specifically, to achieve the goal of finding salvation, we have to replace attack with acceptance. Acceptance to me is a super important term. Acceptance in the 12 steps is taught through a parable, a story towards the back of the book. It's on page 449 of the big book, at least the third edition, the one that I know. And it's all about acceptance. It's all about acceptance really being the keys to freedom. That footnote was, this means we have to replace attack on God's plan with acceptance of his plan. I think I've been attacking God's plan unintentionally, and I have to shift my gears.
Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I hope everybody's having a great morning. And it was wonderful to hear those songs. For me, it was like, it's just in every language you will find songs that are like that deep in the message. But then I don't know if this happens to you, but everything has some kind of the same message. And I was thinking that the rhythm of the music and the sound was too loud to move from the meditation to the kind of music that it is this one played on. But it just made me realize that in every single reading that we find in the world, you will find this kind of message, even in even in the loudest ones. So I was thinking in that, and there's also something that it's ringing my mind a while ago about the 7 sins: pride, greed, wrath, envy, lust, gluttony, and sloth. If sin, the word is just missing the mark. So whenever we are in this kind of mindsets or attachments, because they're really not sins, they are just attachments. When you are attached to your pride, to your greed, to your wrath, to your envy, your lust, your gluttony, your sloth, you're just missing the mark on God. So holding grievances is an attack on God. But if you take this part of our culture in religion and things like that, you can find yourself like a bullet point checklist to see if your life is really heading if your life is heading in the right way, if your decisions are based on one of these 7 concepts, then you're probably missing the mark. And then you probably need to do some other thought process to correct your mind. So if you're making a decision, a huge decision in life, and you can realize that you are not having any of this on the base on that of the decision, then you can feel the love, the sense of, yeah, I'm being guided to do this. I'm not doing this out of pride. I'm not doing this out of greed. I'm not doing this out of wrath, envy, or lust, or gluttony, or sloth. So it's probably a good way to use these concepts that we have this in this world in order for us to feel comfortable on making hard decisions on life. The decision that I have been making recently of getting my divorce and considering to moving away from my daughter and giving my ex-husband the custody of my daughter. Well, it doesn't mean any restrictions on me to her, but it feels heavy to say that my ex-husband has the custody of my daughter when I am the one who has raised her, actually. So it feels a little bit of discomfort. But then if you see the big picture of my entire situation and my entire conflict, and you see that I have been learning now how everything that the conflict with my ex-husband bring into my awareness, then you could clearly see that that is the best and loving way that I could move forward with my life and moving away from my conflict. These decisions of how to divorce in a peaceful way will always demand, well, no, it doesn't demand, it will always represent some form of surrender. And I did have to surrender everything in my life. I had to surrender my idea of this house being mine, my idea of my daughter being mine, my idea of my safety was here or not, my idea of everything that I built here. I had to surrender it in order for me to be able to have another opportunity in love, to have another opportunity in life that I don't know how will unfold actually, because this is just the beginning of a new experience. But I'm trusting God because everything that I had around me, it's clearly some kind of mark that God is placing for me to just follow Him. I'm not doing this out of pride because I no longer had anything to make me to make myself proud. I lost.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm not doing this out of greed because, of course, there's not no money involved in this. I already gave my ex-husband
Absolutely.
his entire kingdom to have my daughter in it. I, I guess that the thing that I was holding on, the attachment that I had, was with wrath. I was so angry because
Oh,
I
man.
have always been so far from God, and I didn't see it. And when A Course in Miracles appeared into my life, I really, really understood that all my conflict with me was myself being mad with God, being mad of being a part of Him, and being me the one who made that decision. So I was really angry at myself. So that part of this um, life process that I'm taking has given me this kind of deep sense of understanding of these seven supposedly sins that are not sins, just you miss the mark. So whenever you have a situation in life when you need to just make a huge decision, you just make sure that it's not out of pride, greed, wrath, envy, lust, gluttony, or sloth, and you will feel peace. So I wanted to share that because you have been all hearing all my process here, and because this is my way to reinforce the idea in my mind that even though I feel sometimes so scared of doing this, this gives me, and again, the validation that it's really the good way of living. I mean, I don't know what will unfold in the next month for me and for Lee, and it's really scary, but I'm trusting that as this is not out of any of these seven things, God will take care of it, because I have not, I, I'm not doing this out of my ego. I'm doing this is because I'm understanding what I've been hearing and listening and reading in this book, that it's the word of Jesus. And it feels correct. I mean, it feels something that is not my doing. I'm just following the lead of the book. And it's scary because it really is the ego, it's letting go the ego, it's letting go the entire belief systems of the ego, and trust, and build the trust, and build the trust, and build the surrender, build the muscle on just be okay with not knowing, and being okay with something that it seems like wrongdoing, but it's not wrongdoing, it's just following the lead, because you are not making it out of pride, greed, wrath, envy, lust, gluttony, or sloth. So I hope this
I,
helps.
I love the peacefulness in your voice when you read out those seven deadly sins. I can never remember what they are. Um, mm,
One of the things that you mentioned was this idea of holding grievances against God, or thinking somehow that uh, God screwed up. And this lesson is really saying that we've transformed a God of unconditional love into a God of judgment. And whether even if we don't buy into the idea that we're a body, we believe that we're a spiritual essence. The Western religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, all have this concept where they've transformed a God of only love, who in creation said everything was good, that's good, that's good, into a God of judgment, which means that he's been transformed into a God to be feared. And for my own self, I know that I hated God uh, because I felt that he, especially if you get to the idea that he's all knowing, all powerful, that if I was screwed up, it was because God screwed up when he made me. And so uh, that was a source of great hate for me. I, hated God. I hated this world because that's how I perceived it, as hating me or God hating me, because he made me flawed. And the ego takes and transforms that God of unconditional love into that God to be feared. And if you assume that you're a body, well, that's even worse. But this idea that I'm a spirit and that I have to earn salvation, or that I'm fallen, that I'm a sinner, keeps us trapped also in fear. And so when they talk about grievances, we also have to realize that those grievances always keep us in prison. And until we're willing to drop the blame, shame, and guilt game on not only others and God and our world, but ourselves, we'll constantly be trapped in fear. And so we have to realize and go back to the start from our source. And if once I understood that God, and this came through mystical experiences, that God is only love, then and I started moving into this idea that I'm God's beloved child with whom she is well pleased, or he is well pleased, or it is well pleased, the universe, whatever you want to call that higher power, uh, then the world became a place that could be exciting, interesting, and not something that I had to dread, because I was no longer looking over my shoulder, uh, thinking that there was some angel keeping score, and that I always had to earn salvation. So I transformed into a learner and just started to accept, as opposed to trying to control, manipulate, and follow that ego's plan. Because the ego's plan is always to argue for my rightness, and to argue that someone else is to blame. And when I say I'm to blame, I'm really implying, when I look at it, because I look at God, I say God really is to blame because he screwed up or she screwed up. And so holding grievances, we really have to go back to the idea that God is only unconditional love, not conditional love, because conditional love gives us uh, says that we have to withhold that flow of love because we need to punish or get that person to think like us or change in some way to adopt our plan. And we have to forgive ourselves for deciding to go on this journey and just accept the truth. And it starts from the idea that God is only unconditional love, and he didn't create any junk, must be perfect, whole, and complete, and he doesn't judge. So thank you.
Thanks, Tom. There's a movie called The Fisher King. One of the big lines in there is, "Well, excuse me." And I feel, Tom, that I was doing the exact thing you were describing. I'm trying to take the reins and trying to do what I think is right and not listening enough. And so today is a perfect day to practice. What is salvation, Father? I don't know. Tell me so that I can understand. Holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation, so let me accept it instead. What is salvation, Father? Good morning, Nabuki. Welcome. We are covering the 72nd lesson in our book, A Course in Miracles. I'm so glad you guys are here. There's about 15 minutes left to the top of the hour, and I know here in America we've had this daylight savings time this morning, which got us up and running a little bit early, but if you're just joining us, we'll be here at 6:37 tomorrow morning to read lesson 73, and all these are saved for you if you want to use them for any reason later on today. You're welcome. And that's about it.
Well, I just wanted to say a lot of our fear comes from the roles that we believe we're supposed to play in this time space continuum, especially whenever we have adopted the belief in a fear based thought system that says that we're an earner. The society gives us certain roles and says, you're um, in a marriage till death do us part. If you don't do that, there's something wrong with you. You're a failure. And if we realize that this world is uh, here for us to grow and learn, we can approach those roles a little bit differently. We can say, you know, that I'm a parent, but maybe God's plan for me is to go with the flow or not to think that I have the perfect plan for my child or this situation, and to go within. Um, in time and space, it's not important so much what we do. The important thing is why we do it. So I could do something, I could leave my child or whatever, and the reason is not, it's why did I do that? If I did that because that's what I was going to say divinely inspired to do, or as Adriana said, without those seven sins, and just looking out for the best interest and following that will, then there's no blame, shame, or guilt. Society will try and dump the blame, shame, and guilt game on us. Other people will because they don't understand the big picture. They bought into the idea that this world is a place of earning something and being judgmental. They've judged us as wanting or not perfect, whole, and complete. We have to rise above that, realize that this is just our play school, and therefore go with the flow, know and trust or allow that God's got a plan. And on the big picture level, everything is designed for our own growth and reawakening to the truth. And just for what it's worth, anyways, whenever doing the meditation, and Leah asked the question, uh, "Where is salvation?" It came loud and clear. Not in this world, but any
Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
yeah. No, that's the
it's
God joke,
these
isn't it?
roles that we play, and we think that the game token is what we are, and that's just instrument that we use to uh, learn lessons from, and it gives us the ability to learn in perfect safety because I see how my game token performed on the board. I can learn that lesson. But from an observational standpoint, I know that I'm not the body is not me, and that game token allows me to gain experiences so that I can hone my skills to become what God wants us, which is just demonstrating love in form and not taking ourselves so seriously and not getting involved with the blame, shame, and guilt game that we project on others. And we also project upon ourselves, God, and our world. Thank you.
Lee, you said when you read that this is a huge, huge question. It's interesting that I don't know about everybody else, and I don't know how many times I've read this, it doesn't matter. Each time we go through this, if we spend enough time, we get the clues that we need each day. And that makes that lesson on that day, for example, today, the best lesson ever because it's what I needed today. I, I didn't need to know that yesterday. It's not going to do me any good to know it tomorrow because I'm going to screw up today. So the question is, what is salvation, Father? Maybe the answer is the next statement that it says here. I do not know. So the question is, what is salvation, Father? The answer is, for me, I don't know. I don't know what's best for me today. I can find it out with some quiet time and asking for it. And then, as Lee says, accept it. I can look at the things that Adriana mentioned. Is it one of those when I'm not sure whether Father is talking to me or ego or all these different characters we talk about? Those are all the way we have always done it. We have taken a feeling like anger or something and made it into a thing. And we don't need any of those things anymore. If I really think, what do I want in life more than anything else, I have one answer, and it's not love so much as peace. I just want peace. Then I can love everybody and everything.
But the
But
way
that's
to peace
one.
is only through love.
Okay, I'm not doing semantics here, and I'm not
Sorry.
doing etymology. I'm saying the meaning, the words, the word to me. I want peace, peace of mind, peace of God. So it's easy to say, then you want God, okay. But I want to feel peaceful. I want to feel not worried about the war in Russia, not worried about the Ukrainians who are just being obliterated and their country and not all of those things that take away my peace. How can I get there? That would be salvation for me. And I want to know peace. And the last third statement here is tell me that I may understand. Me, I. I want to understand. I don't care if Tom understands it. I don't care if Lee gets it. I don't even care if Adriana gets it. I need to know for me today. Tell me so that I understand. And then in a little bit later it says, holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. So God has a plan for my salvation. If I hold any grievances, resentments, then I'm attacking the plan. Well, that's not giving me salvation. That's not saving my ass today. Let me accept it. His plan for salvation. What is salvation? And in those moments after that, I clear the way of a lot of the garbage that's covering up, that's keeping me from really understanding how I can have peace today in this world, in my family, in my businesses, in my country, in my world, and with God. In that order, I need to feel peaceful. How can I get there, God? This morning, just before we started, I was looking through different things that had come in by email, and I happened to come upon something all about scientific and what they found out in the core of the planet. Wow, they know what's down there. And there's this cutaway of the planet, and there's little things down there, and they actually use the word blobs. And for some reason, there are certain blobs that usually are on one side of the planet down there, and others that counterbalance it on the other. So it's not lopsided. Well, they've discovered that there's a blob under Africa bigger than the one that would be its counterweight under the Pacific Ocean. Now, what has that got to do with me? Why am I even reading something like that?
Sounds like something new to worry about.
I read and I read and I read, and almost in the last two sentences, it said, because of this blob that is under Africa, and I'm not going to go into all the details, but contrary to what you just said, Lee, because of this unusually larger blob under Africa, there are going to be more diamonds there. That is what is going to come up in the land. Now, that was a nice miracle for me. Why? Because today I'm having a meeting with all of the people that I'm working with on Liberia, and we're going to be mining it. And I just found out something that's been in the works for hundreds of millions of years in the formation of our planet, right there in Africa, where we're going to be mining. Do I want success? Sure. Is that okay in the attributes of salvation? Oh yeah, that's going to help because we want to help people have a better life. So that was a miracle. I mean, I never, and I'm even as I read it, I said, "Why am I reading this stuff? I want to get ready for our meeting." And there it was. It said right, diamonds, and it was actually something that you can poke and tell me more about the diamonds, which I didn't get to because it was time to start the meeting. That's the way when I'm in the right flow. That's the way a day goes. Miracles abound. And that, knowing that these are miracles beyond any shadow of a doubt, no matter what anybody else says, that's a miracle for me. And that tells me I'm on the right road, on the right path. So that's my 2 cents for today. Thanks. I'll be back with diamonds.
In
Take that, two
time,
bits.
in time and space, the law of obligation says that the only obligation you have is to be true to your higher self, otherwise to follow God's plan for you, and that's your obligation, the only obligation that you have. These obligations that the fear-based world throws upon us, those are all designed to either uh, get us involved with the blame, shame, or guilt game, or to teach us learning lessons that we just need to surrender our ego's plan and go within and follow God's plan. Uh, thank you.
But it's amazing to hear all the Bob's activity with his project in Liberia. So I was wondering this morning, in fact, that Bob hasn't talked about this for a few days. I'm wondering what is going on. So there, I have my answer. I'm going to just move again a little bit to the subject of the seven sins because it's just that these thoughts came recently and they are pretty useful. What is these sins? I mean, what are these sins? Pride, greed, wrath, envy, lust, gluttony, and sloth. What are they? So meanwhile I was hearing everybody, I was saying, well, those are attachment. Whenever we feel attached to something, we are like bound to be at that, be in a fixed position. If you have any attachment to anything, even if it is your kids that you created, you're getting an attachment. And it seems like in this world, one of the biggest lessons that we are learning is to detach from everything in the level of, even if it is your kids, not in a bad way. It's just that my mom always said to me, you know, I love you so much, and I have been taking care of you and your sister, and I will always be there for you, but you are not mine. I need to raise you in a way that you can have your own tools to take and make your own decisions. Whenever I ask her to help me find some kind of resolution in some conflict in my life when I was younger, she said, baby, I already gave you the information of what's good and what's bad, wrong or right? So you need to make those decisions for yourself, because otherwise you will blame me, and I'm not the one responsible for the actions now in your life, because you are no longer a child. So you need to make your own decisions, and you need to make sure that those decisions comes from your heart, because the only thing that you need to be selfish to is with your heart. So you need to feel safe in a way that whatever decision you make in life, I will always be here. And she still keeps saying that to me. Even now, she still says, you need to do whatever you need to do, and I'll be here. But you need to go and do your life. Every time that I had to make hard decisions in life, when I had to detach from everything to move forward with my life, my mom always said to me that. So I was really reflecting on these things, and they are really all attachments. I mean, the pride is the attachment to your past experiences of knowledge. So you think you know everything, so you get attached to the knowledge that you have in the past, but it's just an attachment on the past. In the now, yeah, you get to use your knowledge, but you don't get to judge everybody around the things that you knew about the world, because everybody will have a different point of view. So that's pride. The greed, it's an attachment to the physical level of form. So if you think that your salvation is in money, you get greedy. So you have this attachment on money and on materialistic point of view. The wrath, it's an attachment to control. If you think that you are really the one who holds the truth, you will always find yourself frustrated because things don't go on your way, or you think that you could do better, so you always are really getting mad at people because people doesn't do things as you think you should do it better and whatever. So wrath is an attachment to control things, and you are not the one in control. The envy is an attachment on lack. When you feel that you are not fully holy and complete, then you see your lack reflected in everybody's wealth, so you get envy. So you get like, you get to judge people on what they have or don't have or whatever, so you get envious.
Yeah.
Lust is an attachment to pleasure, to the feeling of pleasure.
Yeah.
And the feeling of pleasure don't always means to have something physical with you. Pleasure can come from stillness and peace. So if you have this attachment to pleasure, you will only have interactions with your several sisters and brothers just to gain something out of them, not to have an experience in love, just to gain something out of them. So you get to have this kind of attachment to bodies instead of the sensation of oneness. And gluttony is an attachment to being fed from the outside. Gluttony is just thinking that you're lacking something and the food will provide the nutrients, so you get attached to food in some form because you are giving the food all the aspects that only a thought of feeling complete, full, and holy can bring into your experience. So you get attached to food. And sloth is an attachment to being helped. You think that you cannot help yourself, so you get lazy. So you don't do anything because you think that everything around you had to do something for you, and it's just an attachment on being helped. When the only help that you can get is within you, in your mind and your thought process of feeling fully, holy, and complete, and completely capable to be responsible for your own life, because you are not alone, because you are not detached actually from the source. So you think that everything around you is there to help you, so you get lazy. So everything is an attachment, and it seems like A Course in Miracles is a course as well to surrender and detach, to be able to embrace it all.
Our ego has these 7 stumbling blocks. Our ego has these 7 things that trip it up and get it stuck in the world of duality. And I feel like the way through this can be acceptance that that's what the ego does. It does these things. It speaks first and loudest. We can keep an eye on it because it's always talking about the past or the future, and it's always trying to compare us to everything else outside and looking for a solution outside. And if we accept this non-dual solution that God is only love, and there's nothing else but the absence of that, and Jesus makes a really strong case in this book for that, then if we accept it, then holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. So let's accept it instead and ask Him, what is salvation, Father? I do not know. Tell me that I may understand. That is today's lesson. Holding grievances is an attack on God's plan. So let's get rid of our plan and listen for His.
And what Bob said was pretty on point. I mean, the part that he said, what is salvation, Father? The answer is right there. I do not know. It's really being okay with not knowing. When I was doing my studies on Theta Healing, and I was having this beautiful course in intuitive anatomy, my teacher always said to me, Adriana, it's just that you are so in your mind, you need to be okay with not knowing. And that phrase were so stuck in my mind ever since, and now I get it. Now I do understand that I do not need to know. Today I don't know. I don't know how I'm gonna make everything happen, but I'm just willing to look upon God and to be always like directed in a way that I can remember always to place my mind in that focus and in that direction, and everything will be open within me to find solutions, because solution is all there is. It's just that we don't see it because we have pride, greed, wrath, envy, lust, gluttony, and sloth within us, because we're in duality. So I'm with as the time goes by, I felt every time I felt more comfortable with the idea of not knowing. I do not know. It's not saying like I don't have control. It's just saying I am okay with not knowing, Father. You let me know so I can be what you need me to be in your higher plan that I do not know what it is. So as I'm committed to love, as I committed only to be reflection of love, I don't need to know today, right now, what is that it needs to be done, because you will guide me in everything that I see. And that comes along with the previous lesson as well. What do you want me to do? Where do you want me to go? And what do you want me to say and to whom? So It's brilliant what Bob said about this phrase. Like, I do not know. Yeah, we need to be okay with not knowing. That's part of the detachment.
The idea of knowing, that was beautiful, Adriana.
Yes, it
I,
was absolutely
I
beautiful.
wish
Thank you.
I may even just get that and get it written for myself. It was beautifully said, and you're amazing. I am thrilled to know you and to see how you put these ideas together in such a way. What you have planned for your family right now is so different from anything. It would never appear in a magazine before the fact, before you go through it and can show what it did, because it's not in what the world would normally say. This is what you should do. Oh, here, I got the answer for you, Adriana. Take my advice. Here it is. It's not. It came from prayer. It was creative because you took what is the most important thing in your future. And even though there are other things that are also important, God told you somehow through a series of miracles or whatever exactly what you need to do tomorrow and today. Now, the reason I'm saying that is because I want to just expand one little thing that you said. Expanding it just means clarifying it for myself that we don't need to know what to do for tomorrow, today. I just need to know today what to do for tomorrow. it's it's the focus on the present moment because all of the lessons and all of the texts that we've read always comes back to that. Today is the most important and really the only time that we can do anything. It's, as Tom would say, it's the only time we can learn something. I can learn it today. I can't learn it tomorrow. It's it's irrelevant what I'm going to learn tomorrow. I need to learn today what I'm supposed to learn so I can learn that thing tomorrow and build on it. So today is all that counts, and doing the right thing today as best as we can understand God's plan for us right now is the only thing that I need to put my attention on today because that's what today is supposed to do. It There are so many different ways for people who want to define, do it this way, do it that way, do blah blah blah. When push comes to shove, when it comes down to me and myself and I in a room by myself praying between me and my God, then I I can listen, I can hear something, I can follow on that today, and it'll bring me from one thing to another maybe, but ultimately it will bring me the peace I need to go through the day. Do I need money? Well, yes. Is that greedy? No, it's a matter of gradients here. I need money to survive, to take care of my body, and I have to stay in business so I can pay bills. Do I need 10 gazillion dollars? No. What would I do with it? Give it to people who need it much more than I do. So it's a question of balance, and that's why that song that we played was so. It was really my just about the same time that Helen was taking dictation from Jesus. That particular album came out, and that has been my spiritual guidelines for years. It's a question of balance every day, and I've listened to that a million times. And I asked Lee to play it this morning after the meditation, and I think it fit very well. The balance. So just to finish up, so I can finish here. Yes, what God wants me to do is to be in balance today. What do I have to do to be in balance today? Well, I haven't spent a whole lot of time with my wife because I've been working so hard this last week. Maybe it's for me to spend some time with Susie. Is that in this book somewhere? No. It's something that God is going to tell me about today. And one last thing I'm going to say, it's a similarity. When Lee was born, the doctor that delivered him said to us, Susie and me, he is on loan to you for 20 years or so. After that, God will take over. The world will take over. So, as a parent, that's our job. And then we can retire as parent. I decided to pick it up and run with it some more. I'm glad I did. That's why we're here today. That was a change to that. So, that's my other 2 cents. Thanks for listening.
And I thank you for being such a great father. You did it.
Dad, that was at least a nickel's worth.
You have been doing such
Dean
a
and
great job.
Stephanie, come on, you got something to say, Stephanie.
Well, she's been with us throughout. She's been
I
amazing.
know.
She coached me, or Janine, or anybody else down below. I won't force you, but you can raise your hand, and I'm happy to bring you up. I'd love to hear from you guys. I needed this morning. This is really Adriana can attest. I woke up in a pretty negative place. Frustrating. I don't like being there. I prayed, but I feel pretty great right now. I feel like this lesson is exactly what I needed today, and it seems to have been exactly what I needed for 72 days in a row. And Dad, didn't you say that it's been over 2,000 days of us reading in a row? We've been reading almost 5.5, almost coming up on 6 years. Anyway, I truly feel blessed by God. I feel like in spite of the small R reality ego shenanigans, which are about the worst I've ever been in, God is definitely taking care of me. So,
Amen.
Janine and Steph, Adriana, thanks, Papa.
Thank you, Ed. Can you
Yeah,
guys hear me?
sure can.
I have my AirPods in. I just wrote down just a few notes when you guys were talking. The first thing that I just jotted down was something that you said, Adriana. It's not necessarily to do with the lesson, but something you said about food. In the yogi philosophy, when you are eating food, a lot of people nowadays, they eat food very mindlessly, especially now with the fast food culture and food being very immediate and easy to get. People just eat food as a way to feel full. And in the yogi philosophy, they tell you when you can become a partner with your hunger and understand your hunger and what it's trying to tell you, then you'll understand the next level of your body. And they tell you that a lot of times when people are eating, they're eating because they feel empty inside, not necessarily because they actually are even hungry. And because of the society we live in, people have just been trained to eat whenever they feel empty. You know, when we're sad, we're trained to eat ice cream. When we're upset, we eat ice cream, you know, like things like that, just like
Why are you
very
picking on ice
immediate and on
cream?
the go.
Sorry.
Oh, I love ice cream.
I love ice cream.
But it's like the habits, you know? And when I was reflecting on it, and when you said that, it just brought up my whole lesson with my yogi about, I mean, even my friend, when she eats and eats and eats and eats and eats, and she doesn't even breathe when she eats. You know, it's just, there's so much in how you eat even that can just tell you about your mind and your mindset and your space that you are in your mind. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, let's
Like
be
even
mindful in
when
our eating
someone,
today.
yeah, even when someone just eats, and the Dalai Lama talks about this in his book. He says when he eats, he can tell when he meets with someone and they're very fast and they're just eating and scooping and talking and they're not really breathing and enjoying the food. And and this is, you know, in my culture, in the Mormon culture, it's just you pray for the food when you get it before you eat it, just to bless it. And what I've come to understand and develop in my prayer is I look at the food and I think about where it was grown, and I think about where it came from and the process of getting it to the store and getting it to me. And in that space and that thought, I become grateful. And some people label that as prayer, but you know, if food is just such, I mean, you know, everything is meditation, and food can be a meditation. And that's just what came up when, Adriana, you were saying people will just eat, and you know, and nowadays people will just eat just to eat, instead of back in the old days when they had to when they had to eat, it was a process. And in that process, it created gratitude, and it created work, and you know, and it was a whole process of getting it. And I know now it's so immediate when we get food in the store and everything is so available to us, but it just reminded me that today I need to be very grateful of where my food comes from and mindful of how I eat. But that was just one of the things that came up when you spoke, Adriana. So that was my
And it's
thought.
beautiful, you know, because yesterday I was talking about my sister. My sister is very different from me. You missed that yesterday probably, because if you hear the replay, you will see the entire story about my sister. My sister is super afraid of what I'm doing, so she sent me a letter yesterday, really like scolding me for for all my decisions right now on the divorce and the things that I'm about to do. Well, and my sister has this specific conflict with food. She's getting fatter and fatter and fatter. She has always had this kind of situation with her weight ever since she was born. So her life has been a challenge around food all of her life. It's a huge lesson on her that I can only think that it was something from the higher perspective of things. And it has been, oh my God, I have this cute little there's a cute white cat walking around my front yard. He just came in, and he's the owner of my backyard now, and he's taking water from the pool. He's
The
really,
cat.
yeah, the cat, a white cat.
He's
Right
moving
now.
in. He's
Yeah,
the owner.
he's exploring his
Making
new
himself at
home.
home.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I got distracted by the cat. Well,
Oh,
and
Vera's
so
gonna
my
love it.
sister, yeah, she will. If he's still around, I will show her when she wakes up. So my sister had this thing with food, and it is all about being full. Yeah, I totally get what you're saying, and that it's the attachment that she has. She has always feel incomplete and not worthy, because every experience that we had when we were little was a judgment around her looks. And she had her own part of the experience of not having a dad around us. And she has her own journey in life with the thing, but it's really full, being full, what it's gluttony. I mean, the attachment to feel full. So when you don't feel complete, holy, and things like that, well, then you will find your conflict with food, because then you will think that food will bring you that kind of sense of holiness that you are lacking inside of your mind. And I did, in some form, try to encourage her to see this in that kind of way, but she's still in her process with this, and she's getting fatter and fatter, and she's getting bigger and bigger. And my mom explained to me that she's now getting like isolated from the family, because she doesn't want to be around with her aunts and her cousins. She's not in a right mind right now. So my mom told me about the letter, that disregard all those feelings that she's having right now, because she's really feeling that she's incomplete in some form. as she couldn't have a baby because she had several issues with her body. So she's really taking Vera's situation as part of her of her own experience of lacking. So she's just projecting her emotions onto you. So don't take that as that deep kind of judgment. And I said, yeah, Mom, you're right. You're totally right. So my mom gave me again my right mind, and I could respond to my sister in the most loving way without saying that she was wrong. And that was really a huge breakthrough, because these kind of situations in the past totally will don't bleach my wrath. That is one of my main lessons in this life, probably. So that could be really the beginning of a huge war with her, and me saying things to her like holding her accountable for several things that made me feel bad. And well, it would have been a war in the past, and thanks to A Course in Miracles, that didn't happen, and I could respond to her in the most loving way without saying that everything that she said is not true. I didn't have to force her to change her mind. I just had to say that I was sorry that our life experiences were so different, that I apologize for the part of me that triggers all the trauma and the pain from the past in her. And as love is just one, and that's why as love is just one, I could deeply understand what she was saying that to me, and I accepted as part of myself. So I thank her by saying it, because she was showing me her decision to remain in fear, and that was giving me some kind of validation that I was doing the right thing, because I could clearly see the difference between her point of view and mine, and that gave me some sort of validation. I mean, it really landed in a total different way. So I was saying that she was giving me light to know that I'm doing the right thing, because the father of my child and her relationship with him is holy. And he's the best father in the world, because I am the best mom in the world for Vera, and that we were agreeing on that I signed the divorce papers in holy peace with him. And he is with me in this process, because we are healing our relationship to work this life in a different, higher perspective. That is the one that I want to have with him as a brother in this life. We couldn't have a holy relationship as a couple, but definitely we can have a holy relationship as parents. So I said to her that I wasn't going to stop loving her because of her comments, but that I was going to keep living my life as this constant learning process, as the adventure of growth and love, where my daughter can have a space to expand her life. So I was going to keep, out of the letter that she wrote, I was going to keep only the expression of your affection, and the rest I was going to dismiss it. And I said to her that Kurt, my ex-husband, is as holy as her and me, that I was asleep and I couldn't see it. And we were all learning, but it's time to let the Father be the Father. And that goes for the spiritual level and the level of the form as well. And I said to her that if she was really worried about us, that she should ask God, the source of all mothers and all the fathers, to show us the best way to all of us, to provide, the best way to all of us, and to provide us with what's necessary to walk through this life, accepting only His blessings, instead of that fear and that lack and that feeling of separation, because it is impossible to be apart, and that love never stays apart. It only can expand itself. So taking the chance to love is not at risk of losing anything. It's winning all. And that's the world I want to build for my daughter to grow. And it's scary because it means that I'm undoing things around me, but it's it's the path that we are all going through. So I get to say that to her, and it went perfectly because then there was not a single word from her as a response to this that was unloving. She really just took my words, and yesterday, I mean, I give her that message, and then the replies on that message was really her normal self with me. And I know that she's going through her own tribulations in life, but
Wow.
she's really
Incredible.
okay with me now. So yeah, we all are in our paths to move away from these kind of 7 concepts in order to be back at home and let the Father be the Father in some form.
Adriana, I,
That's
I,
great.
I really have to add something to what
Amazing.
you just said. It's, again, so beautiful. I think if we think about our society that we live in today, the worst thing in the world that most people think about from a marriage is separation. And in this situation, one of the two people is going to hurt real bad, depending upon where the children go, if there are still some small children. And what you have done is set it up so that you can have the divorce so that you can move on in your life. And you have given the person you're separated from something that he will be thrilled to have also. That is something so different from the way most divorces end up. And you have done that, created it. You stood up for what you believed God wanted you to do. You have put into motion in this world, I think, something that's extremely rare. And I think people should recognize that if they're going to get on their knees and pray and ask for, in our case, salvation, or just the way we're being taught to ask to understand salvation, we have to be prepared for unusual and creative ideas because
Yeah. Yeah.
we're talking to a creator. We're not talking to someone who has a bunch of rules that he made up. He said, oh, okay, this is on page 47. You can find out exactly what you're supposed to do. That's not what happens in salvation. We have miracles. We have amazing things that can happen if we ask. So these questions today, perfect questions.
This is amazing to me. And I'm incredibly impressed by you, Adrian. It's just, I hadn't heard your response. Um, that's just incredible. That is truly coming from a place of love from a higher perspective. And it's a great example of where I'm trying to get to. And I've got till the end of the month, so hurry my butt up. Hurry
You
my
know
butt up
that
to be
everything it
perfect.
will be alright. You know, it's just that
Absolutely.
it's scary. I know how scary that is because
Mm,
it feels like you don't have anything, but it's because that's the part of the process of letting all in, getting detached from the idea that oh my god,
sorry about that.
but okay, got it. I muted you, so you can keep doing your
Sorry, it was
breakfast
my
right now.
tomatoes. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's funny. Well, everything will be okay. I mean, I now know for sure, thanks to A Course in Miracles, that this is like the 6th time that I'm doing this in my life. And in any of the other experience that I had to do this, I never had this strong feeling that, oh yes, I have always been supported, and this is so scary to jump out of the cliff because yeah, it's losing your entire floor. It's like losing everything, but it's not losing everything. It's just letting yourself experience the God, that God is in everything around you. So you always have some kind of support. Even if you think that it came from you, like you're doing and your effort and your it is all God. And you have always thought that it was you, but it's because that is within you and within everything that you see. So yeah, you get to have some kind of some kind of pride over what you achieved in life, but the glory and the praising it should be only to God. That is among everything. It's just that we don't see it, and it is within you, and you don't see it. So getting detached of everything, even our kids in some form, because it actually, you are not detaching. I mean, I have been battling my ego because it feels like I'm doing this huge movement in my daughter's life, but everything around me is showing me the solutions to, and the solutions and the ways to have her completely covered in 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 my contact with her, and the opportunities that she will have to build another kind of communication process with me. It will be okay. I mean, I'm not doing anything wrong right now in that sense. It's just my ego getting my kid. I mean, it's my ego using my child as a toy to get me attached to something that is not true. And my daughter is being loved by her father. My daughter has been loved by me, and she will be loved by everything around her because she's pure love. And I know that there will be some tough times ahead in that sense, but there's always solutions, and I'm looking forward for that because I know that she's gonna be okay. And she always tells me, it's funny because the harder I think about myself doing this, the harder she, without knowing what is going on in my mind, the harder she gets in her statements of, "Mommy, you're the best mommy in the world. Mommy, you are my love." And "Mommy, now you found your true love." And she sings. She sings and she said, "Mom found her true love," and whatever. And so it's such a funny way to have validations, because she is the one that I'm worried about, and she is giving me really like relief with those kind of
And the
statements.
Godfather loves her too.
Yeah, this I haven't told this to Bob, but you know what? Now that my daughter said that Lee is my true love, and that I'm gonna do this to expand the love and things like that, she said, "Mommy, now that Lee is your true love, and you will be there, so I get to have him as my godfather." She said that he is his godfather. He is her godfather. It's just that in Spanish it's padrino, so she says he's going to
Padrino.
be my padrino, but she doesn't know that in English is godfather. So it was such a funny and cute thing to hear, and I was, oh yeah, you
Well,
can
I don't know
set.
about anybody else, but I will never forget this morning and
She
this
doesn't. She
wonderful.
doesn't want to tell him like stepfather. Like she doesn't want to use that. She is really determined to
Fine
call
by
him
me.
Godfather.
Well,
Couldn't be a better compliment.
I don't think so either. I will never forget today. This has been wonderful for me. I um, I hope everybody else has also gotten their things they needed to hear. I'm so grateful that so many of you came to be a part of this morning, and it's something I'll never forget. Thank you all for being here. I do need to move into another place now, but I sure am glad I stayed this long. Adriana, thank you so much, and I love you so much. Thank you. Everybody have a wonderful, peaceful day, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, I will have to say goodbye as well because I have a family activity from my daughter's school today and Sunday. Like,
That seems crazy to me that you
yeah,
guys have a family
yeah,
activity.
yeah.
It's I'm
But
sure
it is
it's
how it is here.
optional, but it doesn't sound very optional.
Well, it doesn't sound optional because my daughter is determined to go there. So
Yes.
I don't have
Well,
any choice.
I know you're going to enjoy yourself, so I am glad you're going to go. And I see, Caro. I'm going to go through and just invite some people up to speak. And if you can make it,
Okay.
that's great. And if you can't, that's okay too. But we're almost ready to wrap, and so I'm just going to give you an opportunity to come up and at least say something if you want.
Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful Sunday.
Thank you, my dear.
Okay, honey. Talk to you later.
Appreciate
Bye.
you. All right. So happy Sunday. Sorry if the phone just flashed in front of you, but hey, Janine, how are you doing? Hi, Afnan. How are you doing? Hi, Tamra. How are you doing?
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. I'm going to
Yeah.
start shutting down the stream so we can all speak freely.
Well, good morning. Good morning.
Hey, Janine.
Hi there. I've mostly been listening late. I signed in pretty late. I had a late night, so I woke up. Yay! It's 6:37, and I rubbed my eyes again. I said, "Oh no, it's 7:37." So
It's okay.
just been
I knew this was
listening.
going to be a tough one this morning. It was for me too. I had fortunately I have an amazing partner, and I don't know how she does it, but she wakes up when I wake up. So at about 5:30, she was right there. She's incredible. I am absolutely stunned at the miracle that she is in my life, and what a model. So, you guys can talk. I'm sorry. I keep going on about this. I got this in my life.
Do you
Oops.
guys live in different cities? I'm confused about that. You keep talking about going to
She
see places.
lives on the
Yeah.
Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico.
That's what I thought. Oh, I mean,
I
I
live
thought
in
Mexico.
I live in Boston.
Oh, okay.
So we're about 1,800 miles apart.
So you
And
virtually wake up at the same time, or you call each other when you wake up?
we call each other when we wake up. Yeah.
Oh.
We talk on the phone most of the day, and we're going to find some way to get together sometime probably around May, but I don't know where we're going to be. I'm not sure that I'm supposed to stay in Massachusetts. Got lots of divergent things kind of pointing me in different directions. And it's frustrating. It feels like it should be clear to me. I think I've got a pretty clear fork in the road, but I'm not sure what to do. So today, I'm going to get rid of the grievances because that's an attack on God's plan for salvation, and I'm going to accept whatever it is instead. And I'm going to listen. I'm going to go to an open house, and I might find an open house that works. And if not, might be time for me to go somewhere else in the country,
Or
someplace where,
get
huh?
an agent, and you know, the universe brought you two together, probably very unexpectedly and naturally and beautifully, and every next step will happen just the same way.
Well, there's an open house I'm going to go to, and I have an agent, and her name is Maggie, and she's been fantastic. And I have kind of a pre-approval and all that kind of stuff set up, and I can go look at a place that's half the amount of my pre-approval. But Janine, it sure looks like we're in a bubble. It sure looks like we're at the right tip of a bubble that is going to pop. Because when COVID, like the fear of COVID goes away, it feels like there's going to be a lot of inventory, say 6 months from now. And so that's the thing that's kind of in the back of my mind. Is it really the best time to buy? What do you think? I mean, if I'm going to flip it, I can definitely see a perfect opportunity. I get
Yeah,
that part too. But this wouldn't be for flipping it. This would be, I'd have to stay there at least 2 years because I'd probably have
yeah,
an FHA loan because I'd be first time buyer, blah, 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 blah.
yeah. I mean, I think just we know being open to all possibilities. Um, letting God know if you can flip, that's fine. If you can wait 6 months, that's fine. You're just open to receive God's blessings. I notice the more I'm open to all possibilities and I just stay in the moment and love and live today, things just kind of happen as they should be. I'm in a relationship as well, and I just sometimes I'll get caught up in questioning things